you're not a problem. That is like my take home message. You're not a problem and there's nothing wrong with you. You're a human who is on a very chaotic planet right now, and it is hard to be here. But the thing is, our challenges that we go through on this earth plane, they're how we grow. They're how we learn about ourselves. They're how consciousness learns about consciousness. And so when we open ourselves up to the opportunities for growth, for holding more love, for deepening our self-knowledge, for standing in greater strength, for being more willing to be honest, like all of these things are available for us every single time we get triggered. We just have to know how to move through that and down into the feeling. When you clear the feeling behind the thing that's difficult for you, when you stop making yourself a problem and you actually start to feel your feelings, you get lighter. You feel relief on the other side of things. You don't carry things around. Resentment is not a thing that lives in you.
Welcome to Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. I am your host, Simon Brazier, and here on Truehope Cast, we explore the many psychological and physiological dimensions of mental health. In a world that's both beautiful and challenging, this is your place for motivation, inspiration, knowledge, and practical solutions. Today's episode is one you won't want to miss. It's called Reclaiming the Body, Truth, Tears, and Transformation. Our guest is Claire Garner. She is an intuitive emotional healing guide and the creator of Intuitive Emotional Healing. Claire has dedicated her work to helping people heal their hearts, overcome their limitations of the mind, and truly deepen their human experience. Her transformational approach doesn't just talk about healing, it delivers the how through practical emotional healing tools, awareness building techniques, perspective shifts, and clear step-by-step processes. Claire empowers people to take real daily steps towards becoming the emotionally free, thriving, fulfilled humans they've always meant to be. If you've ever wondered how to move through your own emotional pain, how to make sense of the tears, and how to truly reclaim your body as a safe and sacred place, this conversation is for you. So get comfortable, open your heart, and join us for this transformational journey. Enjoy the show. Okay, Claire, hi. Welcome to Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. How are you? What is going well?
I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. This is my first time being on a podcast, so thank you for having me.
Well, we're very excited to have that. And we just had a funny conversation off air about how one of us thought this was just to be a nice little conversation before we actually record the podcast. But no, we are diving into this because our audience can't possibly wait any longer. We've got to hear about reclaiming the body, truth, tears, and transformation.
Love it. Let's do it.
Cool. So before we jump into that exciting topic, can you just let us know a little bit more about who you are and what it is that you do, please, Claire?
Absolutely. I'm Claire. I live in Maine in the United States, and I have a framework that's called Intuitive Emotional Healing. So a little bit of background about me. I, for the last 10 years, have been an oncology massage therapist, and my time working with people navigating a cancer diagnosis really opened me up to the spectrum of human emotion. As you can imagine, when you're spending time with people who have just gotten a diagnosis of blood or bone cancer, which was particularly what I was working with. I was working in a hospital out in Sacramento in California. When people get handed that diagnosis, it's almost like they've been handed a ticking clock, and it clarifies everything in your life. It makes you realize what's important. It brings up the things that you haven't said. And so here I was, this massage therapist, walking into this brand new patient's room and getting to sit with them in one of the most tender, terrifying moments of their life, and then spending lots of time with them over a period of a few months. And so I've always been a deeply self-reflective person. I've always had emotional intelligence. I can effortlessly walk in a room and read people. That's been something that's just always been a part of who I am. But that experience in the bone marrow unit really showed me one, it showed me the compassion fatigue that is inherent in a lot of the systems that we have, the healthcare system being one. But it just showed me how hungry we are for meaning and how much is left unsaid. And I just found myself just holding space, like really learning to be present with my own feelings and the feelings of other people. And it was through that process that I thought, I really want to hand more to folks. I really want to have more than just touch to help people feel better. And so I actually went to the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, and I got a coaching certificate from them in 2019. And I started doing health coaching. I actually moved to Maine during that time to be closer to my nephews. And through my health coaching, still focusing on oncology, people navigating a cancer diagnosis, I found that it really didn't matter what lifestyle stuff we were looking at. It didn't matter the goals that the person had. If the person wasn't looking at the way they were thinking and feeling about themselves, none of the lifestyle modification that we were looking at would actually stick. So I went through a series of my own sort of dark night of the soul, things melting down, and my whole life getting pretty loud in 2020, which I think happened to a lot of us. And that during that time really caused me to arrive to my own emotional work and started giving me the little nudges to start talking to people about their emotional work. And I wish I could tell you that there was like a singular moment or some training that I went through or something that pushed me to really develop this framework. But the truth is, it's my lived experience. It's as I arrived and started healing my own heart, I started getting clarity about the way we experience emotions, what we need to clear them, and how we move forward without looping anymore. And so the past 5 years have been me living this framework that I bring to you, taking a chance on myself and moving more out of massage and more into emotional healing work, and really sitting with people and helping them liberate themselves from the stuff they've been swirling in for forever. So my framework is really practical. It's very much based in your body and your sensations, which is why your title is perfect for today, Simon. And it's really easy to apply. This framework is really something that you can bring with you in your everyday and practice in the tiny moments in between. So I have an unusual, I think, background. There's other parts of it that I didn't share. I have a bachelor's in organic agriculture. I've done a lot of traveling. I've been a baker. I've been a nanny. I've had lots of various experiences, which have all contributed really to me having diverse perspectives on the human experience, which I think all just adds together. So,
all right. I have a few questions.
Great.
I'd love to just learn a little bit more about what an oncology massage therapist.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I've never heard of that before, and I'd like to know.
Yeah.
I'd like to know. I'm just interested.
Totally. So I went to a little massage school out in California, and that massage school allowed you to choose your specialty from the very beginning and get focused in there. So oncology massage was one of the offerings that they had. I had never heard of it before I went to massage school. But the idea is when you go through a cancer diagnosis, the main thing that happens is one, often people are surgically altered, right? We have mastectomies, or people get parts of their organs removed, or there's something that happens, lymph nodes are biopsied. And so the physical structures in your body change. And you also go through extensive treatment, right? Which changes the levels of platelets, your white blood cells. It just changes the way your body reacts to touch. So what oncology massage does is it goes, depending on the platelets that a person has in their body, you're going to adjust your pressure so you don't cause bruising on this person. Depending on how many lymph nodes they've had biopsied or removed, you're going to change the way you touch them in that quadrant of your body. So you may have heard of manual lymphatic drainage. That's a modality that helps to move lymphatic fluid in our bodies. And when you go through oncology treatment and your lymph system has been altered or biopsied in any way, it just impairs it a little bit, or it does in some people. So oncology massage goes with all of these different factors, with all of these different things that can cause issues for people. We're just going to know exactly how to alter the massage so that we don't cause more inflammation. We help the body actually move lymph instead of stagnating it. And we can work safely with people, regardless of what they've been going through with their treatment. So it's just like extra protocol to help you add into your massage so you keep people safe, essentially.
And you would get referred by doctors of patients of cancer to come see you. You said you were working at the hospital. Is that right?
So I had a private practice out in California. I have a private practice now, but part of the time, for 2 years that I was in California, I worked at Sutter Hospital in Sacramento. Right. So I was working in their bone marrow unit. It was I don't even know if they have the program anymore, but at the time, they had this incredible board that cared about adding services. And so they hired me, they put me in the bone marrow unit. So I was only on that unit. And I could go into, I think I was doing 16 hours a week, 16 or 20 hours a week. Well, it was 16 in the inpatient and 4 hours in the outpatient clinic, like the infusion center.
Okay.
So basically, I wasn't getting referrals. I could literally just check in with the nurses about each of their patients, and I could pop into whatever patient room I wanted, stay with them for as long as I wanted to, and I just had to chart in their records after. So it was a very unique position. I don't know of any hospitals on the East Coast that are doing this way. And like I said, I don't know if Sutter has continued that program, but it was such a rich experience for me. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds incredible, and it sounds like it's a no-brainer in regards to, you know, obviously somebody who's in a diseased state where they've been diagnosed with cancer, how that massively changes and affects their body. And then post-surgery or post-chemo or radiation, when somebody is significantly weak, and I guess most cancer patients are typically a little bit older, a little bit weaker, lymphatic system maybe not working as well, arterial system, venous system maybe not working as well. So having that manual manipulation is sounds hugely beneficial. It makes a whole lot of sense. So it's very cool that even existed. This is not on my list of questions that I had kind of lined up for today, but what do you think in regards to, so when somebody gets a cancer diagnosis, and you talked about the time frame that they're given, like it's quite remarkable, like almost to the day sometimes, where people pass on from that diagnosis. And I don't know whether that's where doctors are incredibly good at predicting, or people basically they get that 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, and they kind of have this internal clock goes off, and it's a very powerful thing that's said to them from somebody of like authority. And hearing that diagnosis, I can only imagine would be incredibly traumatic to hear. And the energy of that traumatic experience has got to go somewhere, and that would get, without question, trapped or locked or stuck in the body. And how much of your massage therapy work when it came to these oncology patients do you think was connected to that actual diagnosis and the trauma of that event getting kind of trapped in the physical body?
Well, it's interesting because massage therapy people only release if they're willing to with massage. It's very different than doing emotional work. A person has to be present in their body, breathing and willing to release. And so for some people, I think the massage work did help them to release some of at least the anxious energy.
Right.
But I think when it comes to trauma and bigger experiences like that, where I love the way you said that, the energy generated from receiving that kind of shocking news, it does need to go somewhere. And we don't know how to process it. But I would argue that massage and our more physical modalities only go so far in helping us process those things, which is why I do what I do now.
Yeah, that's really cool. I just kind of imagine what I've seen in, let's just say, movies, when somebody gets really shocking news. There's this subconscious action to like hold something or hold somebody.
Yeah.
Where it's hold a hand, hold an arm, or something like that. That's, you know, it's, I guess it's deep within our subconscious that we need to do that type of behavior, to connect, to be touched.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like that massage piece, just that connection with another human being is incredibly comforting.
Well, and I think in the Western model, when you're a patient, that's like a label put to you. You're not I think the nurses and the doctors try really hard to keep people feeling like people. But when you have that term patient applied to you, it does change the way we approach people. And so having a human walk in, me, who goes, "Hi, whatever your name is," and is like asking about, how's your family doing? How have you been feeling? What's happening in your body? And attending to them as a human being, encouraging them to let themselves cry when they need to, and really connecting in with that humanity. I think just that connection when people are willing to let down, they do.
Yep.
And I think that is so healing, just that connection.
Yeah, and just I can only imagine those types of individuals, what part of their brain they're using in that particular time. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety,
Yeah.
and if you're able to have like let's just say a more casual human conversation, it's actually going to engage a very different part of the brain and give people a rest from that scareful state.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
there's so many different levels to that, but
yeah,
that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. My
yeah.
wife she's a somatic practitioner, so
Oh, cool.
I've been learning off her, and we've had people on the show as well talk about their somatic work, how working with not just traditional therapy, you imagine like the therapist sat down with their legs crossed on a very weird bourgeois chair, and then someone laid down on the comfortable sofa
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, and you talk, and it's talk therapy, and it's
Right.
very psychological, and there's literal distance between you and that practitioner.
Yep.
For professional reasons, for sure, but there's a massive aspect missing there in regards to the physical application of stress, trauma, and therapy.
Yeah.
And this somatic work, working with the soma, working with the body, it makes a whole lot of sense to me that would be a much more effective way to help people transition from a particular state to, let's just say, a state of healing or healed.
Yeah.
To work with both the psychological aspects and the physiological aspects as well. So that this massage piece during these individuals who have got cancer, it's just awesome that they're able to actually have that type of a service to be able to support them through it, not just psychologically but physically as well.
Absolutely.
So for the listeners here who might not be familiar with your work in this intuitive emotional healing, can you explain maybe like what intuitive emotional healing is and how it differs from other healing modalities?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, this ties in with what you were just talking about with somatic work versus talk therapy. I actually feel like my work is the middle between the two of those things. So, intuitive emotional healing is a framework that looks at your mind and your heart and the relationship between the two. So, there are two branches to it, as you can imagine. The first branch of my work is practical awareness building. It's going, what is my brain saying to me all the time? Can I give myself a layer of separation between myself and my thoughts? Can I start to look at my thoughts as data points that are really leading me to emotional things that are happening under the surface? Like, can I really just start to sort through all of the thoughts and things that are happening in my head on a day-to-day basis with discernment, empowerment, and in a way that actually invests my energy where I can make change and away from things that I'm just spinning my wheels about that I can't actually change. So practical awareness is a huge piece of it. The other aspect of my work is competent feeling. How do we actually have an embodied emotional expression of emotions when they come up? Which literally means I teach people how to cry again. Like, that's a huge part of the work that I do is how do we let ourselves cry, make the noise that we need to make? It's not saying you need to force it or you have to make noise every time, but if your body needs to make a noise, how can you allow yourself to do that? What does your brain need to be doing when you're feeling deeply so that you don't drown in it, so that you don't distract yourself from it, so that you don't get lost in swirling? So it's like the literal like nuts and bolts of what do we do when we cry? What is embodied emotional expression? And how do we invite all of that in as not a problem, all part of healing, normal part of being a person? So one last thing I'll just add, I guess, to the emotional competence piece and I guess it goes with both, is if you need to feel something through, if you have an emotion that's coming up, the number one thing that is going to keep you from feeling that is your own judgment, which is happening in your brain. And so a huge piece of this is just us pulling apart our judgments, sometimes laughing at them, sometimes grieving them, but going like, where am I making this process wrong? So this intuitive emotional healing process, really, when you take those two things and you put them together, this practical awareness and this competent feeling, what happens is you reset the voice in your head so that it becomes a friend. So it's actually supportive to you. It actually allows you to let down when you need to. And your body knows how to feel emotion through without getting overwhelmed, without getting freaked out, without panicking. And so it's like you just create a nervous system that's easier to regulate and a brain that isn't causing as much dysregulation. So it's about really more lasting peace, actually clearing the energy that's causing the chaos in your life in the first place.
Beautifully said. I love it. Why do you think we need to, or some people need to relearn how to cry? I'm interested.
Oh gosh, because we're so suppressed. We're so suppressed. All cultures push feeling down in different ways. We have all decided that feeling is a problem. But when you look at babies, universally, what's the very first thing that we look at in a newborn to know that they're healthy? They cry.
Yeah.
We're looking for that big cry. It is the number one way that our bodies re-regulate. You know, it releases oxytocin when you have a good cathartic cry. So it's a natural part of our body's ability to reset is crying. But as we grow up, when we get to be about 3 or 4, we start to notice that the people around us are reacting to the way we are. And so we just start to notice like, oh, I'm making this person uncomfortable. They're trying to make me feel better. I don't want them to feel that way. Oh, this person is making fun of me because of how I'm feeling. So I need to hide that.
Right.
Oh, I get harmed by this person. I get hit by this person when I feel this way or do this thing. So kids just start to suppress their feelings because they don't fit in with the people around them. This happens to every person in different ways. Even if we have the most wonderful parents that provide a really loving space for us, we're not with our parents 24/7. So there are moments out in society where we feel emotionally unsafe with our feelings and we see that our peers have a different response maybe than we have at home. So every human goes through many moments where they notice that their feelings are wrong to somebody else. Their feelings are a problem or make other people uncomfortable. And we're wired to try to fit into our community because when we're kids, we literally can't take care of ourselves. We literally need other people to help protect us, to get food on our plates, to keep us safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And provide for us. So we're wired to watch everybody else and go, how can I fit in here? And suppressing our emotions is just part of how humans have evolved to kind of get through. So I think it's universal.
Interesting. Yeah. Sometimes when my wife's having a tough time and I come in and she explains to me that she's had a good cry, I'm like, oh, good, great. Like,
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then how would you begin to help someone to teach them how to cry again? Like, can you give me an example?
I can, let me say this. Because I said earlier, judgment is the number one thing that's going to keep you from crying. The first thing that we have to do is get our brains under control. So I tell everyone if you're going to do emotional work, meaning if you're going to cry and feel something through, you need 3 things. You need the time to do it. Okay. You need the willingness, which means you need gas in your tank. You've got to have the focus, the energy, right, to be able to do it. So you've got to have the time, you've got to be willing, and then you've got to have the safety. And we don't think about this. You can think about it like, okay, yeah, I'd probably want to be in a room where like maybe no one else can hear me, maybe where I can have turn on a sound machine or close a door. We think about those things to have like the privacy that we need to feel. But a huge part of emotional safety in order to actually feel something through is having a space within yourself where you're not wrong. Think about it. If you're with somebody else and they're unkind to you on a regular basis, they're tearing you down, they're criticizing you, they're looking at all the stuff that you need to fix. Maybe they're self-conscious, like they're not fully comfortable with their own emotions, right? You're with them all day. When you get to a point where you need to let down, where you need to cry, are you going to feel comfortable to cry in front of that person? Like, probably not. But
No.
that's the way our brains are. Our
Yeah.
brains are constantly in the background critiquing. So many of us have a deficit focus. Some of us are the opposite. Some people are like, I'm only looking at the good things. We're not even going to acknowledge the bad things, right? So it's like our brains sort of set up this environment where we either feel safe to feel or we don't feel safe to feel. So the very first thing before we even get to feeling our feelings is we have to become familiar with what our internal environment is. What is my brain saying to me on a regular basis? Is my brain celebratory of who I am? Does my brain hold me lovingly accountable? Not is my brain mean to me? Because my brain is mean to me. It's going to be hard for me to feel my feelings.
For
If
sure.
I feel like my feelings are wrong, it's going to be hard for me to feel my feelings. So the very first thing is we've got to get your brain under control. And then we've got to get you out of your brain and into your body.
And I'd love to know how we do that. Like, have you got any like a step-by-step process of like, is it different for everybody? Is there like a formula there?
There is a formula there. This is something that I teach in my community. I've got a community called the Conscious Heart Academy, and I lead workshops there. And I've got a whole emotional resource library with step-by-step processes and teaching videos and things like that. And I'll give you like a general summary of one of my tools, which is called the sensation triangle. And it's this idea that your brain is creating thoughts all day that are generating an emotional response in you and sensations in your body, because emotions are just energies that create sensation in your body. You think of the sensation of anxiety, it's a very buzzy, very charged kind of feeling in your body. When you think about grief, grief is a very different set of sensations. Sometimes we collapse forward with grief. There's a hollowness with grief. There's a heaviness with grief. You contrast that to joy. That's like an uplifted feeling, right? There's expansion with joy. All of these things are sensations in our bodies. And so we have to be able to connect in with those sensations on a day-to-day basis to notice what our emotional experience is. So the sensation triangle in general takes you and goes at any time throughout your day. When you're willing, when you remember, you stop, you take a deep breath. I encourage people to close their eyes. And then you literally come down and you focus your entire attention inside of your body. And your first question is, what are the sensations that are present? Do I have tightness in my chest? Do I have a knot in my stomach? Do I have a lump in my throat? Do I have tension in my shoulders? Like literal 3D, what are your sensations? We're doing that again because your emotions create sensations in your body. So you have to notice on a day-to-day basis what your sensations are to even notice that you're having them in the first place. The second thing that we do is we go, what emotions are present in me? And then you ask yourself, like what are my emotions? Am I feeling diminished? Am I feeling abandoned? Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling happy? And then the third thing you're doing is you're going back up to your brain and you're going, what did I just think about? What have I been thinking about today? So in this way, when you take your brain, you take the literal sensations in your body and you take the emotions that you've been feeling and you correlate them all together, you start to create an emotional landscape for yourself to actually notice when you have emotions coming in throughout the day. If you spend all day in your brain thinking, problem solving, planning out in the future, whatever it is that you're doing, there are so many of us that are numb from the neck down and we don't know what our sensations are because we've gotten so good at paying no attention to them and just pushing our bodies through whatever it is that is happening. So the very first thing is you got to practice in moments where you're not pissed off, where you're not triggered, where you're not having a hard time. And you got to practice in those moments, noticing what's happening in your body so that when you are having a hard time, you're more able to notice what's going on. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I visualize that triangle. I visualize that pathway and being able to actually look at it from the perspective of sensation first and kind of backpedaling to the initial thoughts that come up. And I guess you can kind of go down like a cognitive behavioral therapy route to actually like analyze those initial thoughts to suggest, is there actually any validity to these statements? And then you can start, I guess, like rewiring that whole cascade.
Well, can I offer an alternative lens to it?
Please.
In this work, I always say to people, I don't care what's actually true. You're not responding to what's true. What you're responding to is your belief about yourself or your reality that you don't like. So it doesn't even matter if it's true. It's just what's your belief system, even if it's off base. What emotion is that generating? And then we learn to be there with that emotion with resilience. And that's how it clears. So the tiniest part of this work, the least important part of this work is analyzing anything. I always say if asking yourself why helps you to arrive to deeper compassion for yourself, helps you to understand yourself at a deeper level, so you make more space for yourself in your own humanity, in your own, we all create friction in our lives and our own ways that we show up imperfectly, then your why is great. I love that. But if your why is just trying to figure out where something came from and it's looking for blame or it's looking for the source and it's not a compassion generating, humanity relating, generating kind of experience, then the why isn't helping you. That's why cognitive behavioral therapy gets us to a place where we understand what we're feeling, but we don't necessarily know how to move through it. So this is like the next step.
I love that, yeah, because you initially said kind of it's that middle point, right? This work is this middle point between that psychological and physiological pathway. Love it. Very cool. What role does self-awareness play in that healing journey, and how can people start building that up if they're feeling disconnected?
Absolutely. I mean, self-awareness is I think it's the tool that we need in order to be able to dive into this with ourselves. But I would say paired with a lens where none of it is a problem. Like when we use our self-awareness to then should on ourselves and decide that we need to be different, we're not actually helping ourselves to heal. So we want to be self-aware, but we also just want to make room for the fact that we're a person. Everybody does stuff that hurts other people. Everybody has moments where they say the thing that upsets somebody else, or they show up in a way that they're not proud of. It's a part of how we grow. It's a part of being a person. I always say, like, you get to be a person. Like, this is one of the things that I bring to everybody. It's like, there's not anything especially wrong with you. You're like the rest of us.
Yeah.
All of us struggle in moments. So self-awareness, we want to use it, but we want to frame it in this like really loving way where we go, the more of myself that I can see, the more things in me I can shine a light on, the more compassion I can grow. And then the more willing I'm going to be to feel my feelings when they come up, so I don't hold on to stuff anymore. Me being hard on me doesn't help me. If I can use my self-awareness and I can go, human, you're enough as you are, and really love to stop doing this thing that is really hurting the people around me. Great. Can I grieve that I've been doing that? Can I love the part of me that wants to be different? And can I just hold space for the emotion? So we're taking self-awareness, which I think can be a deficit focus for a lot of people, and we're just softening it. We're making it so that it is this beautiful companion that helps us to excavate instead of beat on ourselves.
Excavate rather than beat on yourselves. I like that. That's cool. Is there like one common mindset or belief that keeps people stuck? Do you see that?
I think everything boils down to I'm not worthy or I'm not enough. I mean, I think that's what it always, like, on some level, there's some level of worthlessness in us. Because again, we look at ourselves and we go, I should be different than this. I should have learned this already. I shouldn't be acting in this way. And it's looking at our own human experience and making it wrong. But the truth is, there's nothing wrong with any of us except for that we think that we're not enough. That's the only thing. And so it's like, well, and that's not even wrong. It's just an opportunity. So every single thing in our life, this is my belief at this point, every single thing in our life that creates dissonant emotion in us is just a moment that's trying to get our attention to go, hey, human, there's deeper love here that's available for you. There's more connection that's available. There's more humility that's available. There's something more here for you. And so when I look at all of my emotional experiences as being here to crack me open and connect me into more love, so that worthlessness, that not enough-ness shrinks little by little, day by day, then all of it's an opportunity and it's all beautiful and none of it is a problem. When we feel worthy, when we feel enough, it's very hard to offend us. It's very hard to, and I'm not saying that anybody has this perfectly. I think this is an ever deepening process for us. I don't think we arrive at a place where we're healed. I think healing is this ever expanding awareness, ever expanding ability to hold more love. But when you arrive at a place where your self-worth, where your level of connection to yourself and your awareness of your own inherent beauty and endearment and the lovely things about you, in addition to the places where you want to grow. When that's more in balance, I guess I can say. When your self-worth is more in balance,
Yeah. Do
we
you
just have more to offer the people around us.
for sure? Oh, for sure we do. Absolutely. When we benefit ourselves in that way.
Yeah.
What do you think about? Do you think this lack of worth that a lot of people experience? Do you think that is brought about by our cultural circumstances? Because we obviously we're in the same biological body as we would have done 10,000 plus years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love to think about like what would is the psychological thought, I am not worthy, I am not enough, is that a normal part of human existence? And is that, and because of our culture, our environment is very different than it used to be, would that lead us to want to do more things and be part of a community and feel that worth? Or is it now a result of our kind of crappier parts of our culture? Big question. It's a big
It's a
question.
big question, but I love this question. So, this is sort of how I look at the human experience at this point. Every single human comes in, and you've got your own set of gifts that you're arriving with, like things that you're naturally good at. Everybody has them. You also arrive to a family and a culture and a socioeconomic circumstance and a geographic location that all gives you limitation. And so all of those things interplay to give you possibilities, along with the way that you learn to think, right? Like the way that those cultures and families and so all of that program you to think about yourself. You have a different potential for what your life can look like. But on a broader spectrum, society goes, success looks like this. Being a
Yeah.
good mother, a good father looks like this. Being a good partner looks like this. This is what it is to be attractive. And so we have all of these boxes that we start to shove ourselves in to go, even though I do things a little bit differently, this isn't how everyone else is doing them. So I'm going to abandon myself because I want to fit in with everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think this worthlessness comes from, and this struggle that we have with ourselves where we feel like we're not enough. I think it comes from not being able to express ourselves fully, because we've decided that because we're not doing things the way that society at large would have us do them, that it's
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And so I think when we abandon ourselves like that, we move further away from what's in true alignment with us, which is why healing is this amazing process, because healing goes, let's strip away the boxes, let's shine a light on them, and let's figure out how we can untether ourselves from them so that we can step into more free expression, so
Yeah.
that we can be a more fully embodied version of ourselves, whatever that looks like. So I say to people, you're here to do things differently. You were never meant to be put on the conveyor belt of society. None of us were. And I think that if the conveyor belt of society didn't exist and we actually really embraced every individual human and the way they wanted to do things, we wouldn't have the worthlessness. We wouldn't have the self-consciousness. We wouldn't have this not enoughness being so rampant in our culture.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way our biology will catch up with the cultural evolution that we experience. I think that with the internet and with technology, life has become way more complex and way more complicated and confusing. And I just imagine when we lived in small communities of maybe several dozen people, you were literally born into a role. You had responsibility, you had worth within that community. And because we've just expanded so much, that's now just very confusing and messy. And we see so many young people now with no real motivation or drive to do something, because it's very confusing. Where is their place in all of this? Like, back in the day, I feel so old just even saying that statement, but let's just say thousands of years ago, you would have a role. You'd be a fisherman, you could be a hunter, you'd be cooking food, you'd be foraging food. These things were vital roles for the survival of that community. And I think as we've expanded our connectivity globally, we can't keep we can't honor that, I don't think, because we think way too external rather than thinking more of like the home and the community, just like being a better friend and being a better husband and keeping that keeping that in close proximity to you as we would have done in smaller communities. I think now it's very, very tricky for people to be able to do that. And it's just, it's something that we've kind of lost, I think. And I see here in this quite small town that I live in here in the middle of British Columbia, that the benefit of living in a small town of like 100,000 people is like, you know, so many people. You see people at the grocery store, you see people at soccer games, etc. You see people that there are friendly faces kind of all around rather than kind of strangers. It's still on a massive scale, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, but I can only imagine how challenging it is to try and find your place. Well, they say try and find your place in the world. Like, what does that mean? Try and find your place in your neighborhood or in your community and start from there. And it only goes to show that people are struggling to find a place in their own heads, let alone in the world.
Yeah. And if you think about it, as all of that has grown, we used to just have the example of our communities to compare ourselves to. And so it was easier to sort through what's acceptable and what's not. How can I connect with these people? But because of the interaction on the internet, because of the vast library of examples that we can look at out in the world, it's harder for us, I think, it is harder for us to find a place. And we can compare ourselves a lot more than we would have before all of this technology. And so the amount of self-diminishment that is rampant is part of this process. As you diminish yourself, as you make your experience wrong, you actually lose your trust with the little voice in you that knows what's right for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a part of why people are so lost, because we are so emotionally suppressed and because we do have this deficit focus where we have all of these shoulds of the way we're supposed to show up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that causes people to lose connection to that intuitive voice that guides all of us.
Yeah, and when you're comparing yourself to everyone else on the internet or on social media around the world, we obviously have that organically within us to compare yourselves to other people. But imagine if you were to take away the internet and the social media side of things, and we're all in smaller communities, and you're comparing yourself to a handful of real life people there that you could actually learn from, and you could actually use it as a motivator to drive yourself forward to become more part of the community and to evolve.
Yeah,
that's where that comparison piece becomes, I want to say, like beneficial and becomes an actual driver, rather than it becoming this like really draining, depressive practice, especially when most of it's all BS anyway, like online.
Right. Yeah.
Wild. I'd love to talk to you about nutrition specifically. I wonder, like, through your work with oncology massage and your work now, like, here at Truehope, we're very passionate about mind and body health through nutrition. It's kind of what we do. We want to get people's bodies nutrated, their brain and bodies nutrated to a way where they're able to actually deal with long-term chronic nutritional deficiencies, and actually allows people to start doing all these other things that is very important for their mental health to start feeling better. So from your perspective, how important is that foundational nutritional piece when it comes to emotional and mental healing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Where I am now, I'm not doing any lifestyle coaching at this point because the emotional work, I feel, is so much, it's a place where I can affect change in a greater way within people. But the way that I look at things is that everything has a frequency. The emotions that you have a frequency. The food that you're eating has a frequency. There's frequency to the clothing that you're wearing, depending on what fibers you've got on your body. And so for me at this point, when I look at overall health, it's doing an audit of all the frequencies that I'm taking in. So the cleaner all of those are, the more health we have. Mm-hmm. So certainly, I mean, in Functional Medicine Coaching Academy, they taught us, like, eat the colors of the rainbow. Like, make sure you're eating clean food. There is a difference between organic and conventional produce. There just is, because of the chemical inputs that are involved. And so eating as cleanly as you can helps to elevate your frequency. If you're eating living foods, you're elevating your frequency. And that's helpful for your system, just the same as breathing in clean air, like having air filtration, making sure you're drinking clean water. Mm-hmm. All of these things all have a frequency, and they're all intermingling in your body at all times. So for me, I look at the whole always.
Mm-hmm.
If we're eating really cleanly and we are polluting our bodies with negative self-talk all day, we're diminishing all the beautiful work that we're doing to put beautiful inputs into our body. So we've got to look at all of it.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I'm sure your experience of working with people with intuitive emotional healing and all those practices, that for a lot of people it's work, it's hard work, it's changing neurological pathways, which requires the right ingredients to be able to do that effectively.
What's interesting about this process, and I'm sure there are other people out there talking about this, but I haven't found them yet. So if you find anyone, please send them to me.
Okay.
But the way that I think about this and my experience with this work is that it's effort to change our brains when we haven't cleared the energy that's causing the thought in the first place. So your thoughts create energy that show up in your body in the form of emotion. And when we don't know how to clear the emotion, our emotion gets put in storage form. There's a really incredible biofield researcher named Eileen Day McCusick, and she, for the last 30 years, I think, with tuning forks, has been documenting the human biofield, which is a storage of our emotional energy within 6 feet of our bodies. And from Eileen's work, it's been very clear to me that our emotions, when we don't feel them, when they're too overwhelming, they're too big, or we don't feel safe to feel them, they get stored within our system. And so the more storage we have, the more likely we are to be depressed, to be easily triggered and overreact. You can think of people that have really huge responses to really tiny stimulus. That just means that you have a ton of emotion that you've just been shoving and you haven't been feeling. So from this perspective, it's really important for us to get in there and actually feel the emotion, feel the frequency underneath our thoughts, so that we're not efforting to not think them anymore. So we're not efforting to try to change our behavior. Your behavior is just showing you the emotion you haven't felt. We are emotional beings. All of our decisions are emotionally motivated. So when we learn to feel the feeling behind the thought that we're having, and that's what my process does, is help you do that, help you move from the thought into the feeling that can be cleared. When we actually do that, it isn't difficult. It becomes so much easier because you're not fighting the frequency in your body.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does boil down to actually clearing that energy, not just coping with it or pushing it down.
Amazing. And I can only imagine how much of those emotions that get trapped happen when we're young children and we don't really recognize what's going on.
Yep. Because again, you need that safety in order to feel it. So it depends on how safe you felt as a kid.
As you guide people toward emotional freedom and fulfillment through your process, what is one piece of wisdom or encouragement you most hope they carry with them through your work?
You're not a problem. That is like my take-home message. You're not a problem, and there's nothing wrong with you. You're a human who is on a very chaotic planet right now, and it is hard to be here. But the thing is, our challenges that we go through on this earth plane, they're how we grow. They're how we learn about ourselves. They're how consciousness learns about consciousness. And so when we open ourselves up to the opportunities for growth, for holding more love, for deepening our self-knowledge, for standing in greater strength, for being more willing to be honest, like all of these things are available for us every single time we get triggered. We just have to know how to move through that and down into the feeling. When you clear the feeling behind the thing that's difficult for you, when you stop making yourself a problem and you actually start to feel your feelings, you get lighter. You feel relief on the other side of things. You don't carry things around. Resentment is not a thing that lives in you. You know how to help yourself fill your cup every day. It isn't this exhausting experience. But again, our judgment's going to keep us from feeling our feelings. So the number one thing is like, you are not a problem and there is nothing wrong with you. Like, stop making yourself a problem. You're just a human in a difficult situation and you have opportunities to learn. That's all that's ever happening.
I love it. And I can't wait to tell my wife that I am not a problem.
Yeah, you're not a problem.
No problem. That's awesome. Claire, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Can you just let us know where people can connect with you, please?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on pretty much all the apps, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, at Intuitive Emotional Healing. And then my website is intuitiveemotionalhealing.com.
Perfect. And I'm going to put those links in our show notes. And I'd also, if you could share with us that book one more time for people that you were talking about by that lady.
The biofield researcher?
The biofield researcher, yeah.
Yes, her name is Eileen Day McCusick. And Electric Body, Electric Health is a really great book to start with.
Electric Body, Electric Health.
Yep.
Dynamite. Perfect. Well, I'm going to find the link to that and get people there because I'm going to get that myself because that sounds very, very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, Claire. Well, thanks again for coming on to the show and sharing so much wonderful information with us. You weren't quite prepared for a 50-minute podcast today, but this was so cool.
Yeah, this has been really fun. Thank you so much for having me on.
An absolute pleasure. Well, that is it for this episode of Truehope Cast, the official podcast for Truehope Canada. I will make sure all the information you need to connect with Claire will be in the show notes. You can subscribe if you want. You can leave us a review if you want. But that is it for this week. We'll see you soon.